will take 1 hour. All audience microphones are muted. On the right-hand side, you should see a little control panel, and that's where there's a chat box, and you'll be able to ask questions throughout the session. The orange arrow closes and opens the control panel. Please use the chat box to ask any questions, and at the end of the session, we will be answering them. The video is being recorded and be sent to you afterwards, and you'll be able to also access this session on Emerald's YouTube channel. If you get disconnected at any point, please just use the same link and that will reconnect you to the webinar. Now, I hope everyone is safe and well during this unprecedented pandemic. For this webinar, I am delighted to announce that Emerald is partnering with the Royal Institute of British Architects. We will be exploring how an open peer review model will support design architectural solutions and encourage a healthier and happier post-COVID-19 world. Now, a little bit about the guests in the panel today. We have my colleague from Emerald, Dr. Gemma Hemming. Gemma is a senior publisher for real estate, built environment, environmental management, and sustainable cities. She'll take us through the Emerald Open Research Platform. Our guest is RIBA Councillor for Europe, Tim Clark. Previously Research Fellow at the University of York and author of some 200 papers and articles, and holder of professorships at Queen's University Belfast and the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon. He is currently with Deutsche Bahn leading the design of transportation hubs. Tim will talk about how open peer review model and how it can be extended to the work that architects do. Gemma, Tim, welcome and thank you very much for your time today. Now, just before we get into the session, I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to Emerald for those of you who may not be familiar with what we do. So here's the agenda for today's meeting, or for today's session, all quite self-explanatory. We'll move on to an introduction to Emerald. So a little bit of background, not going to go into too much detail today. The company was founded 53 years ago in Bradford, West Yorkshire, and that is still in Bingley now is where our head office is. And the company remains completely independent and is still very much a family-owned organisation. However, it has a very strong global presence, and you can find Emerald's regional hubs around the world, and pretty much every libraries in every single country in the world will have a dedicated point of contact. The core subjects of the content that we publish is business management, education, engineering and information science, but we are widening the scope of the content that we publish. We have a portfolio of over 300 journals and also a book front list of over 200 titles. And in more recent years, we have moved into publishing teaching cases. To give you an idea of the scope of Emerald, the scale, over 30 million Emerald articles were downloaded in 2019, and that is more than 80,000 a day. So the content is very well used. As a publisher, we are incredibly passionate about a number of issues relating to research and generally making the world a much better place. So we do have a strong reputation for supporting early career researchers. Open research, that's the reason why you're here today. And again, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Gemma will be talking you through a little bit more about those as we progress through the session. And just being able to make the research experience much more responsible. So I'm now going to hand over to Gemma, who will be able to tell you a little bit more about open research and our built environment portfolio. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. And thanks everyone for joining today. I hope you're all well. So as Alison said, I'm a senior publisher at Emerald, and I work on the property management and built environment journals. There are 20 journals in total, including our latest edition, Open House International, which joined our collection earlier this year. Other key titles include ArcNet IJAR, which is International Journal of Architectural Research, Engineering, Construction and Architectural Management, and Smart and Sustainable Built Environment. And our journals are relevant to a wide audience, ranging from students, researchers, practitioners, and policymakers. And we partner with a number of associations whose members receive access to our journals, such as the European Real Estate Society and the Institute of Place Management. And we also have an award-winning books programme where we offer flexible book formats, such as research monographs, edited collections, short-form, quick-to-publish books, as well as professional and trade titles. And they all come with very striking bespoke cover designs. Another important part of our offering, and increasingly so, is open research. So what exactly is open research? Well, the definition varies, but it generally refers to the idea that scientific knowledge of all kinds should be openly shared as early as is practical in the discovery process. So it means making the research process more effective, transparent, and collaborative. So it not only makes the final research output open access, but makes the pre-research process transparent by publishing these outputs such as data notes, registered reports, and research methods. Open access is the process in which these research outputs are made freely available, so anyone can benefit from reading and reusing the research. So we'll now move on to talk about Emerald Open Research. So this is a new and pioneering online open access platform that supports rapid publication of a range of research outputs. It was launched last year in partnership with open research provider F1000, and it's an online platform, not a traditional journal. It's completely open access, so all the research is freely available to read, download and reuse, so it reaches a truly global audience, with articles being published under a CC BY license. And peer review of articles takes place after publication. So once the article is published online, expert reviewers are then invited. And the peer review process is entirely open and transparent. Each peer review report is published with the reviewer's name and affiliation alongside the article. The platform also benefits from an open data policy, which supports Emerald's commitment to open research. So what kind of content does it publish? Well, it publishes content beyond the traditional article to give authors maximum choice and flexibility, such as policy briefs, data notes, posters and slides, correspondence and case studies. And the platform consists of 6 online gateways, which are aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the 6 gateways are very broad and interdisciplinary in nature in order to help solve real-world problems. The 6 gateways are sustainable food systems, healthy lives, responsible management, sustainable cities, education and learning, and the digital world. So I look after the Sustainable Cities Gateway, and this looks at how we can create resilient, sustainable, livable and inclusive cities for all, whilst maintaining economic growth and reducing environmental impact. And this is obviously becoming even more important during the current coronavirus pandemic. So here are some of the articles we've published so far. And these cover topics such as emerging technologies and smart cities, urban informality and the unplanned city, the smart natural city interface, and the urban and socio-spatial implications of COVID-19. Emerald Open Research also consists of collections, which are compilations of content relating to a specific community, institution, academic society or conference. And we've recently added a dedicated COVID-19 collection to help researchers disseminate timely and relevant findings about coronavirus, which we hope will benefit all of society. As the platform is open access, publishing costs are generally covered by an article processing charge, or APC, which is usually paid by the author or their institution or funder. And the APCs are based on word count, ranging from $1,200 up to $2,500. So now moving on to open peer review. So what exactly is it and how does it work? As you can see in the image, it's a very straightforward and quick process. You simply submit your article or piece of research and it undergoes a rapid initial pre-publication check by the in-house editorial team. So these checks ensure that it's within scope, it adheres to the author guidelines and follows our ethical and editorial policies. The editorial team also checks that the article is intelligible and is written in good English. If a submission fails the initial checks, it's returned to the author to address the issues, and if they're not resolved, the article will not be accepted. But if the article passes the initial checks, it will be published online with the status awaiting peer review, and it can be immediately read and cited. So unlike a traditional journal, there isn't an editor who would make a decision on whether to accept or reject the article. As mentioned earlier, the peer review process takes place after the article is published online. So it's completely open. So the reports are published alongside the article, together with the author's responses and any comments from users who have registered on the platform. So there are a number of benefits to the open peer review process. The entire process is completely transparent, which allows key learnings to be taken from the reading of the paper alongside the criticism and feedback. And anyone can comment on the manuscript or piece of research, which means that the community can be involved in the discussion and debate. And as the reviews are in the public domain, we found that reviewers are less likely to leave biased or overly brief reviews. And there's recognition for the reviewers themselves. Their contribution is visible and citable, and each review has its own digital object identifier, or DOI, so it can be cited in its own right. An open peer review enables authors to start an open and constructive dialogue with other experts in the field to build potentially important new connections and networks who might become future collaborators. So what are the other benefits for readers, authors and society? Well, the platform offers rapid publication. Articles can be published within 14 days of submission, so results and findings can be shared extremely quickly. The open data policy also plays a key part in the acceleration of open research. It helps others who are researching similar topics build upon the research and advance findings in crucial areas. And this data sharing also allows researchers to collaborate and become more efficient through sharing resources and ideas. Open access publishing increases the visibility and maximises the societal impact of the research to help it reach a truly global audience. And the comments feature of the platform, where registered users can post comments and suggestions about an article, helps to build up a community and further allows for the exchange of ideas. We also feel that it's particularly beneficial for early career researchers. For example, Masters and PhD projects may produce negative findings that are typically hard to publish. So Emerald Open Research helps to enable early career researchers share this work and build up an adequate publication record, irrespective of the final outcome of their project. So here are some testimonials from our authors. As you can see from the quotes, authors really like the speed and transparency of the platform. And because it's open access, their work reaches a wider audience. So that's just a quick overview of the platform itself. I'm now going to hand over to Tim Clark, who will talk about how open peer review can help create a healthier and more sustainable future. Thanks, Tim. Over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Gemma and Alison, for that introduction. We have some very challenging times ahead with the COVID-19 virus and the environment that has been unsettled by all of its impacts. And I think this is a good time to bring together our colleagues in RIBA Europe, the Royal Institute of British Architects members in Europe, to consider some of the issues that this raises and the opportunity that open source, open research, peer review can bring to the table to improve our likelihood of being successful when we find new solutions, which they will be, to the kinds of problems that we'll be facing now. The big challenges in Europe, it's quite interesting actually to think about this. The big challenges are staying connected, and we need to share what we have more effectively. We need to make sure that we're not drifting away in isolation, and that we actually, although we've been isolated, we take advantage of these wonderful new networks and connectivity media that we've now found, like this today, where we can actually talk to one another more spontaneously and more inclusively. And we need to improve collaboration and remember that not just presenting, but debating also is very important about how to get new ideas off the ground and out into the world of application, which we're very happy to see that Emerald Publishing is committed to doing. Maintaining credibility is the undermining or underlying aim and priority, and that is actually a huge marketing advantage for the average design or construction enterprise. So when we open up the work that we do, or the research or the publications that we feed on, to wider scrutiny, we can actually enhance our marketability, we can enhance our credibility by citing the body of knowledge that we've actually been able to harness when we develop new ideas and new designs. And the ultimate aim, of course, is to ensure a sound and reliable design that performs well. So let's have the next slide and see what we can, how we can develop this discussion. Slide 2, please. The next one. That's it. And one of the first things that we can do to help our effectiveness, or to improve our effectiveness, is to look at case studies and models as benchmarks for how we can develop in our future responses to the challenges that lie ahead. We need to obviously live sustainably, we need to address climate change, and we need to see what's been working well in those particular headings of application. And we have an example here in Dessau in Germany, built in 1928. So there's a lot of experience there to tap into. And there will be some write-ups of this kind of development, not perhaps as old as this, but good bases for helping us make decisions about good solutions for the future. Next slide, please. And of course, sustainability is the undermining or underlying principle, and it's going to be related very much in the direction of health and improving human health and the health of communities in the future. And we need to be able to test the basis of design, the benchmarks and precedents, such as I've just mentioned, the viability of the brief, the viability of the assumptions that are going into the design. And then we need to ultimately to find ways to better verify design performance, the outcome against the intent. And here's a project that was built in Poland, in Wrocław, a model village for sustainable living, which could be one of the models that we could follow for the future. Next slide, please. Thank you. And one of the factors which we like about what Emerald is doing is that of building consensus and opening the process up to an inclusive process where almost anyone is welcome. In fact, everyone is welcome to contribute on an open platform and to freely access and share what we want to say about what we're doing, and to question or comment upon our design basis. And I think we need to think about this as an opportunity to tell the world about what we're doing and to encourage others to have a part, have a say in what we're doing, and to comment about the assumptions that we're making. This is Bressanone in northern Italy, otherwise known as Brixen, beautiful place, and it is an example of sustainable, happy community design, which we always think is a good thing. So here we are. Next slide, please. And also, importantly, we'll have to address the problem and challenge of new ideas, testing new ideas, living smaller, living more, perhaps in a more surgically controlled environment, learning from other examples that are available, such as the space station, which has an extremely well-controlled environment and which involved a lot of architectural input and a lot of research. We should really be able to tap into that research. We should be able to build on it, and we should be able to use open peer review to test the ideas that we're bringing into play. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we can learn from past mistakes. And the theory is that if you employ an architect, especially an RIBA architect, of course, you can be more likely, you'll be more likely to solve the problem of how to do the outside walls, build a roof that's not going to leak, and to create a place that's safe and healthy for entertainment and for public meetings and gatherings. We have all kinds of new dimensions to these problems, and the more we can open that up to peer review, the better. Next slide, please. And of course, we have very important benchmarks, such as prize-winning schemes that are actually demonstrating a hugely successful implementation already. This is the Sterling Prize winner last year, Goldsmith Smith Street development in Norwich, UK, a public housing project, which was very successful because the people felt involved with it, and they felt they could own it, and they felt that they were part of the decision-making process in which they then would be living. And it is a community that is growing already into a well-integrated, happy community that's going to be probably more resilient than most to the consequences of coronavirus. So when we review or when we use a design basis such as this, or we use it as a reference of some sort, we have a chance to publish what we think and how we're thinking on an open peer review platform, and to harness the benefits of open commentary from a variety of users and people that we want to alert to the fact that this work is ongoing. Next slide, please. Now, of course, we have some great projects. This one is the History Faculty building in Cambridge, completed in the late 60s. And it was actually inspired by a lot of things that were going on at the time, including the lunar landing. James Sterling was researching materials that were applicable within NASA, within cutting edge design projects of all kinds around the world. But the construction industry has its own habits of mistakes, and there were so many variations on this job that the building nearly collapsed in 1985 because of failures in the ring beam, which are to do with perhaps an inadequately informed monitoring process, and learning from this, which my firm did a review of in 1985, to learn the lessons of why it failed and how we can do better in future are very, very important. And this is all about building failures and about learning from building failures and making sure they don't recur. But it's a great building and it's still there and we saved it. So next slide, please. And then we have all kinds of areas in which we need to be active in order to become productive and successful as professionals in my field of architecture. As an architect, people want to win the gold medal. We hope that the gold medal criteria will include some kind of open peer review, so that more people than just a judging panel can be involved with saying whether it's a great one or not. And the idea of retrofitting a house and meeting energy standards, and the idea of how we cope with Brexit, all of these areas of activity and interest are relevant to the possibility of harnessing open peer review in what we say and how we propose to deal with these phenomena and these challenges. And I think we are looking at an opportunity here to increase our options and choices and our profile generally as part of the success story that hopefully will follow the challenge that we faced with the pandemic. Next slide, please. And then we have some new territories that we have to really start to think of as an opportunity for open peer review. We have come from a past which was polluted by industrialization, which we've addressed, we've tried to improve upon. And the old approach was always based on capital, labor, and materials, as we know from the previous publishers of economic papers. But we have another economy now, which is the economy of ideas. And the economy of ideas has a tremendous value. This is an economy that was promoted by the economist Paul Romer for countries that and communities that did not have any other way of getting income. And in a way, the designer or the architect, and let's say designers in general, are in this category. And we are providing tremendously valuable solutions, sustainable architecture, new ideas, helping people to solve problems in new ways. The shift from being the didactic authority that tells people what to do into one that we take more interest in the outcomes and how people are responding to what we do. The design opportunity to reduce operating costs, on which there are very, very many and very many helpful papers that we can utilize, and that those papers and those pieces of work can all underline the value of the work that we do. And then we can go right into the construction process, where there's a lot of potential to publish evaluations on the difference between the intended actions and the finished product. And this is a very major source of interest at the moment, all stemming back to the power of ideas. And when those ideas are not properly reviewed, we see the consequences in tragedies like the Grenfell Tower fire and others that we've seen far too many of in the past few years. Let's go on to the next slide. And that's it. So if I could just conclude by saying that open peer review actually tunes into a principle that W. Ross Ashby, the father of cybernetics, encouraged everyone to believe in, and actually is probably true, which is that there is a law of requisite variety. If you don't have enough choice, if you don't have enough ideas coming in, you won't be able to choose the best idea, because the ideas will be too few to be able to find that best idea. The best way of proceeding in the future is going to be by allowing more to flow into the system, more knowledge to flow into the system, more experience to flow into the system. And that's the whole idea of bringing open peer review into our field of architecture and what architects do. Thank you very much, and we're looking forward to some questions, some hard questions, please.
Thank you very much, both Tim Clark and Gemma Hemming. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to go over to some of the questions. First question, this looks like a question for Tim. How did you hear about Emerald Open Research, and why did it interest you?
I heard about it through colleagues that I worked with in Qatar, actually, when I was working on the Qatar projects to develop rail systems there. And I also gave papers at conferences where I overlapped with Professor Ashraf Sham. What's his Ashraf Sharma? Salama, sorry, please, yeah, thank you. He's going to not forgive me for that, but he was such a great help and such a great inspiration to what I was doing to try and work with the United Nations down there on the climate change conference that the Qataris hosted in 2013. And I felt that what he was doing was in a way cutting edge, and he led me to Emerald Publishing, where you've been doing some work with him, and introduced to me, rather than RIBA, which is where I am based, to the idea of open peer review. RIBA has its own, our Royal Institute of British Architects has its own open peer review procedure, but it's actually quite interesting the way these things randomly come up, and I was very inspired by the values that Emerald Publishing include in its approach to open peer review, coming from a broad background and then coming in with the UN sustainability principles that you mentioned earlier on, that are so central now to how we proceed with our philosophy of how we develop in the built environment. That's the reason I picked up.
No, that's great. Just again, any further questions, please do keep them coming in. Another question that's come in, how can organisations like RIBA partner with Emerald and benefit from Emerald Open Research? If it's okay, I'll take this. Obviously, the benefits and the advantages of publishing through Emerald Open Research platform have been outlined by Gemma in her part of the presentation. But one further advantage from an institutional point of view is that we can offer an option whereby we can create a branded collection. So essentially, Emerald Open Research becomes a good home for an institution's research, and it can be branded, give a nice kind of uniform collection of research. And there are also options to have a sponsored gateway, which again creates a very high profile home for your research. If this is something that's obviously of interest to you, then I would certainly be delighted to have a further conversation. A few more questions in. This looks like it may be a question for Gemma. What type of content does Emerald Open Research publish?
Okay, thanks, Alison. So yeah, Emerald Open Research publishes a broad range of content types. So it's not just the traditional research article. We publish new content types such as policy briefs, posters and slides as well. We've seen increasingly recently, data notes. So yeah, other things other than the research article, PowerPoints and slides, as well as some new types of content we've published. So if people have any suggestions for content types that aren't currently on the platform, then yeah, I'd suggest definitely getting in touch with us to see if we can accommodate different versions of content. So yeah, please do get in touch with us to discuss further.
Excellent. I have a question here also, which is coming from one of our participants in India. We've encountered many times in peer review, the paper goes to someone inexperienced, many times just for the job's sake, and they involve themselves in the review and come up with an illogical suggestion. So this is quite a very specific question around the peer review. Gemma,
yeah,
something
sure.
that you can elaborate on?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting question. Thanks for that. So yeah, traditionally in journals, they adopt a double-blind peer review process. So the author doesn't know who the reviewer is, and the reviewer doesn't know who the author is. It's all completely anonymized, and they can never contact each other directly. It all goes via the editor. So that's one of the advantages of Emerald Open Research. Because the peer review process is open and transparent, the author can actually recommend people to review. So when they submit their paper, the authors are asked to recommend at least 5 reviewers who are experts in the field to review the paper. Obviously, that we take into consideration conflicts of interest, so they can't be people's close colleagues or friends. So there are checks that are done by the editorial team to make sure that there aren't any conflicts there. So yeah, the authors, it's really led by them. They can choose the best experts in the field, people that they want to comment on their work. So that would, yeah, that's one of the great benefits. And also the author as well, if they don't agree with what the reviewers said, they can actually reply and comment back, and that's all visible on the platform. So there can be numerous versions of an article as well. Authors can take the advice from the reviewers and improve their article and upload a new version, and it's all completely transparent, so you can see how many times an article's been updated as well. And as I mentioned before, people can comment on that as well. So if you're a member of the public or an architect or someone just with an interest in the field, you can register on the platform and you can comment as well. So we're trying to increase sort of community engagement and get more people involved in the process. So we don't want it just to be academics or researchers. We're trying to reach a wider audience.
Fantastic. Quite a few more questions coming in, so we're good for time at the moment. Are we running any open surveys for COVID-19 experiences? We're interested in working from home and how this can impact the future design of our homes. Now, I think this question could maybe, Tim, if you could share some opinions, and then I think certainly Gemma may also have some thoughts on this. So Tim, what would be your thoughts? I think we're going to see a lot more working from home in this post COVID-19 world.
Yeah, the feedback I'm getting from colleagues and within my own organization too is that it is quite possible to collaborate, especially with the go-to platform on designs. It's very often done between United States, UK, Gulf offices, and many different kinds of centres in the past. And I think this is becoming more of a routine for people collaborating within perhaps a smaller locality where they don't want to meet together. Although I have met people who couldn't stop themselves from going to a meeting, 300 miles away by train in order to be there in person, and in order to work out how to resolve certain design issues in what's called a design workshop, which then would be written up. And there are all kinds of formats for this, and I think this does deserve to be written up and published and shared more widely on this platform.
Yeah.
And Gemma, from your perspective, are you starting to see research coming into the platform with this post-COVID world, post-COVID in mind?
Yes, definitely. So we've set up a dedicated COVID-19 collection on the platform, and that's been really popular. And we also ran a waiver scheme for article processing charges, whereby the costs to publish were waived for the pieces of content related to COVID-19. So that was to try and speed up the process for people. So we've seen huge uptake on that, and the collection itself keeps growing day by day, more content's being added to that. So it's definitely something that we're aware of and trying to encourage. And also we've got a dedicated coronavirus resource page on our Emerald Publishing site, which is a collection of book content, cases content, and journals content with call for papers as well. So that's definitely worth looking at too. So I'd encourage people to browse the website.
I should add, if you don't mind me adding, Alison, and
please, my guest.
The RIBA has a website where there's a huge amount of information on how people are coping with COVID in their offices, case studies, people reporting on how they've run their practice in different ways, putting people on furlough, what the economics of the situation are, what the outlook is for the future, and also people talking about how their approach to projects has generally been adapted, what sort of design considerations are coming in. And this is going to produce a huge body of new work that I think we do need to get aired in a responsible platform such as yours.
Excellent. Keep the questions coming in. The European Commission, according to the European Commission, there's an obligation for EU-funded research to be open access. Is much of your open access funding, or most of our open access content coming from EU? On that point, yes, and equally the fact that the gateways, as Gemma described, they also line up, they're very closely aligned to the UN, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and that is also a criteria for many different types of funding. So the answer to that is yes. I also have another question that's come in regarding are the research articles searchable with different formats? Gemma, could you tell us about that, please?
Yes, they're all completely discoverable and searchable, and they'll be indexed in Google Scholar as well when they've received the 2 peer review ticks. So that's when they've been reviewed by 2 people and been accepted. So it's completely discoverable, and we also have Altmetrics on the site as well. So if any of the articles are mentioned in things like Twitter or LinkedIn or in policy briefs, then you can follow the Altmetrics link as well, and you can see where they've been cited and used in the wider media.
Excellent. We've also had a similar question. How do we sift through the research materials on more quality versus quantity basis of relevant materials in our specific context or field, using both micro and macro scales? I suppose that does that answer that, I believe?
I think so, yes. I don't really, unless Tim has anything to add to that.
Please do elaborate if that hasn't already been covered. This looks like a question for Tim here. What is your suggestions for a developed country in post-COVID-19 trying to make the economy more resilient without considering the environment and climate change? Any thoughts on taking those into consideration?
Developing countries were very much in the mind of Paul Romer when he developed his endogenous economics theory based on the performance of developing countries relying on non-material, non-resource-based factors in their economy. So these countries can recover by doing more to market the ideas that they have produced and to concentrate on the ideas sector, or the knowledge sector, if you like, to feed and support, as many developing countries do, the work that architects do and the construction industry does by providing bespoke services that need to be more reviewed and monitored. I definitely would think that would be important, but they nevertheless provide quite a good sort of patchwork of support services. And the way out of these situations with climate change and COVID-19, I think, is also to do with trading ideas for materials and finance from developed countries. And I think that should be an economy that needs to have a higher profile for the future.
Excellent.
And just to add to that as well. Oh, sorry. Just say that we have got a publication fund for authors who are based in low-income and middle-income countries, and that's based on the World Bank's list as well. So if the article processing charges, if authors don't have any funding for that and they're from those specific countries, then yeah, please do get in touch with us, because it's something that we are conscious of, and we want to be as open as possible and accommodate authors from those regions.
Excellent. We've still got a little bit more time, so we're thank you for sending through those questions. Let me just come back to some more questions there. This looks like a question for Gemma. What has been learned from open review in comparison to traditional peer review? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. We've had some really good feedback from authors who have published on the open platform. And they've said that the speed of the reviews has been one of the real benefits. With traditional journals, the peer review process can take months, unfortunately, because everything has to go through the editor, and academics are so busy and they don't always have time to review papers. So if invitations are sent to reviewers and they don't reply for a few weeks, and then new reviewers have to be found, you can see how the process can take quite a long time. So for it to get to at least 2 reviewers, whereas with the open peer review process, it's much quicker. And the benefits also include the openness of it. So the authors can interact with the reviewers and get really useful feedback. And we found that the reviews, because they're openly available on the platform, that the reviews themselves are much more detailed than they would be normally, because everyone can read those reviews. So the reviewers themselves are sort of judged on the quality and depth of their reviews. So yeah, we've had a really positive experience, and it's something that we're looking to trial as well in some of our journals, where we make it open. So we're running a few open pilots as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Again, here's possibly a more a question around CPD. So I'm referring it to Tim. How can we expand the relevance and importance of CPD for our international members from multiple scales, micro and macro? Could training be assessed through online workshops connecting with local and global stakeholders in the construction industry?
Well, I think the short answer to that is yes, and we're trying to build a platform on which in fact, it's not difficult to do that, but to actually have a platform hosted in which, in different rooms, if you like, within this platform, it will be possible to hold different kinds of CPD events, and also to find links to CPD activity that is already published, and that could be continuing with professional development is available not only at RIBA, but a number of related organizations. And RIBA has a fantastic portfolio of high quality CPD, which actually is supported by a number of very helpful, I won't say basic papers, they're just essential papers on the subject of sustainable architecture, for example, fire safety, on insulation, on all kinds of detailed things to do with construction and supervision. And I think we underestimate really the power of that knowledge base. And I think that also, as soon as we start to stir that all up with excitement and interest in continuing professional development and knowledge acquisition, I think we then start to get people producing more opinion papers or observation papers or research papers that then might come across to the open peer review process to inform that process and refine it even further. But it is quite an underused resource at the moment, although it is very popular when people find it.
Yeah. Gemma, is there anything that you wanted to maybe add to that?
And I think Tim's covered that one. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's great. Although I do have a question for you here. Do we have statistics on how the reader groups have changed due to open access? So, for example, more general public, civil society benefiting from having this knowledge instead of or as an alternative to scientists?
That is it's a really interesting question. I'm not sure if we actually do have those statistics, but it's something that, certainly we should be looking into. We do have on the platform, you can see how many views and downloads the papers have had, but it would be really interesting to drill down further and see who is actually using that content. And I think that's something that we can obtain. So yeah, I'd definitely be interested to see those statistics.
Excellent. And would comments be open? So the comments on the open peer review be open? And I think, Gemma, as you've explained, do you want that yes, they are open, but do you want to give a little bit of additional detail there?
Yeah, sure, thank you. Yeah, in order to comment on the platform, users would have to register to the site, but it's completely free to do that. So once they've registered and they have an account, they can comment, and then the comments is visible on the screen, so next to the article or the peer review comments. They are, I think they are moderated to some extent, so so they would be checked by the editorial team. But yeah, I don't think we've had to remove any comments as far as I'm aware. So yeah, they're freely available. Sorry, Tim, I think I was going to mention something then about the comments. Did I interrupt? Well, maybe not.
Okay, one final. Oh, sorry, Tim. Please go ahead.
I think that the open peer review process that Gemma's has commented on, and the way people comment, it is verging on a LinkedIn, Facebook type of facility, but when it's hosted in the context of peer review, and the peer reviewers are chosen carefully and in a way encouraged when they are qualified and capable of contributing, I think that can actually be a good guarantee that the comments will be relevant and can actually be positive in the sense that the publisher or the author has intended. There are all sorts of other things to say about that, such as what goes on Wikipedia, which I think is a very good knowledge development platform. And it is a sort of open peer review. In fact, it is, and I do reviews on Wikipedia, and had a number of discussions about whether this, that, or the other should have been added in, or certain references are missing, and so on and so forth. And that kind of dialogue is really valuable for not only the author but also the people who are contributing. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's been great to see lots of questions. Just got one more, which is actually a comment. Thank you for the excellent presentation. Interested to understand how RIBA will bring previously underrepresented voices into open peer review processes. And secondly, how can Emerald support RIBA towards these objectives? That looks like a question for you, Tim.
I'll unmute myself in order to be included. Thank you very much for raising that question. It's really important that these underrepresented voices come through. And I think it's to do with this platform that we're talking about, the idea of an important new platform which members and associates and interested supporters of what the RIBA is trying to do internationally can tune in and contribute ideas and perhaps have their work seen and reviewed. And I think that within RIBA Europe, which is the engine behind this event, I mean, we're sort of in a way leading the way where the others fear to tread. So we are actually able to define a future, perhaps of that kind. And if you'd like to be in touch with me within RIBA Europe or somehow through RIBA, you can find out how to do that. I'd be very happy to hear from you, or via Emerald. We can definitely talk about how to make that happen.
Absolutely, definitely scope to get together and to have those further conversations. And I think certainly Tim and I would be delighted to have those conversations.
Very good.
Right, I think we've really kept this within time. Do we have any more? A couple of last minute questions actually, and I think we've been doing so well on time. I think we have time to answer those as well. So a question is around the cost of each APC, so each article processing charge. Each article costs $1,200 US to publish. That is correct. As I mentioned, we do have options to create a curated collection of research for an institution, and in cases such as those, we can obviously apply economies of scale and a bulk discount. So, but that for an individual article, that is correct, and that's the standard price, and it does come in a little bit lower than the standard average APC in a typical journal. I think we're good for one final question. How do we understand the process of review when the journal rejects our paper? I think this question has to go to Gemma.
So on the platform, if each article is checked by the in-house editorial team, and it has to adhere to the aims and scope and meet our ethical and editorial policies. And if for any reason the article doesn't meet those requirements, it would be returned to the author, and the author would be given the chance to correct those issues. And if the author wasn't able to do so, then the article would unfortunately not be accepted, but it would still be published online. But the author would have the chance to go back and improve and work on the article. So it's not like the traditional article peer-reviewed journals where it's completely rejected. It just wouldn't be accepted, but there would be a chance for the author to work on that and improve the paper.
Fantastic. Well,
can I just make another remark? Excuse me, I didn't want to run over time, but we have a couple of minutes.
No, we still have time.
Rejection, I think, is one of the problems that we've had in the past, that of all kinds, that design is not good enough, those ideas are not good enough for them, they're not keeping up with the aspirations of the client, it doesn't cover the subject matter sufficiently well, or it simply is badly produced. And I think that, again, you know, this has got to be a process that can only improve the way we work and the quality of what we deliver, and its reliability, especially now we're taking on much more responsibility to address the problems at hand. And don't forget, even if you're worried about the fact you can't write much, you can actually perhaps sometimes produce a drawing or a diagram or a chart that might speak 1,000 words. I'll constantly say this, that we don't actually have enough visual material in a lot of research, and I think that if we start to turn the thing on its head and start to find ways to become more visual in what we want to say about where we're going, and perhaps, of course, with photographs and examples, these are tremendous opportunities for challenging Emerald and others to subject them to open peer review.
Fantastic. We'll leave those final words with you, Tim. Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much to my guests, to Gemma and to Tim for joining me today. I hope that it has been very useful and inspirational. If you do have any further questions regarding RIBA or Emerald Publishing Group, we would certainly be delighted to hear from you, and also to let's continue that conversation. Let's keep talking about open peer review. I'd like to thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.